Kale watched the last drops of his coffee slide down the curved edge of his mug, staring into the dark residue, as if it held the answers to his malaise. The din of Terminus Station hummed around him. The metallic groans of the ventilation system he'd failed to properly repair, the distant bass thump of alien music from the entertainment district, and the ever-present whispered conversations of 1,000 different species. The cramped maintenance apartment he called home smelled of machine oil and the spicy Centaurian takeout he'd brought home 3 days ago. Its corrugated metal walls were stained with decades of condensation, bearing witness to countless drifters like himself. The only personal touch was a small earth fern in a recycled hydroponic container by his cot. Its vibrant green leaves a stark contrast to the utilitarian gray of the station. Kale's hands trembled slightly as he set down the mug, an old combat reflex he'd never fully shaken. 10 years since leaving the corporate legion, and still his body remembered. The nightmares remembered too. His comm unit buzzed, displaying the grimacing face of his supervisor. Ventilation failure in Section 12B, Xylon Diplomatic Quarters. Priority 1. Fix it. The supervisor's face disappeared before Kale could respond. Kale sighed, gathering his tools. Section 12B was far outside his usual maintenance route, a gleaming counterpoint to the rusted corridors he typically serviced. The Xylon were meticulous about their environments, their insectoid physiology requiring specific atmospheric conditions. Corporate diplomatic zones were always trouble. Too many secrets, too many guards with itchy trigger appendages. But refusing the job meant losing his position, and anonymity was all that kept him safe these days. The corporate legion still had a price on his head after what happened on Proxima 4. The journey to the Xylon sector took him through the stratified anatomy of Terminus Station. He traversed crowded marketplaces where vendors hawked exotic wares from across the galaxy, past dingy bars where mercenaries and smugglers negotiated deals in hushed tones, and into progressively cleaner, more sterile environments as he approached the corporate zones. The transition from the station's lower levels to the Xylon diplomatic zone was stark. Gone were the flickering neon signs, the smell of exotic spices, and the chaotic press of bodies. Here, the corridors were pristine, lined with gleaming metal panels and bathed in cold, blue light that seemed designed to emphasize the alien nature of the environment. 2 Xylon guards flanked the entrance to Section 12B, their chitinous exoskeletons reflecting the blue light in iridescent patterns. Their compound eyes regarded Kale with what he assumed was suspicion, but Xylon facial expressions remained largely unreadable to humans. Maintenance, Kale said, raising his work order tablet. Ventilation repair. One guard chittered something to the other, then stepped aside, mandibles clicking. Proceed directly to the environmental control chamber. Deviate from your path, and we will interpret it as a hostile action. The threat was delivered in perfect standard, the translator implanted near the Xylon's feeding apparatus, giving its voice a metallic quality that did little to mask the underlying menace. Kale nodded, keeping his eyes down as he'd learned to do around authority figures. Looking too interested, too intelligent was dangerous for someone trying to stay anonymous. The ventilation system for Section 12B was accessed through a small maintenance corridor that branched off from the main hall. Kale moved efficiently, his body remembering the routine of repairs even as his mind wandered. The ventilation issue seemed simple enough, a clogged filter and a misaligned cooling component. Strange that they'd call him for something their own maintenance drones could handle. As he finished the repair, voices drifted through the ventilation shaft. Xylon speech, rapid and clicking, followed by the mechanical tones of their translators. "The shipment will arrive on schedule," said one voice. "The human delegate will never suspect the bioagent until it's too late." "Commander Forlag has approved the final phase," replied another. "Within 3 station cycles, all key human representatives will be compromised. The economic concessions will follow naturally." Kale froze, his hand still on the ventilation panel. A cold feeling spread through his chest that had nothing to do with the chilled air of the Xylon quarters. "What security measures?" asked the first voice. "Minimal concern. The agent is undetectable to standard scanners. Our research division has confirmed it mimics natural human neural degradation. Their physicians will diagnose stress-induced stroke or cardiac failure. Xenostrain 7 is truly a masterpiece of bioengineering, the second voice said with what sounded like pride, even through the translator. Selectively targeted, species-specific, untraceable. Kale carefully secured the panel, mind racing. He needed to leave now before they realized someone had overheard. He gathered his tools with deliberate slowness, fighting against the old combat instincts screaming at him to run. He was almost back to the main corridor when a third Xylon emerged from side room, its carapace bearing the distinctive red markings of command authority. Kale recognized the insignia immediately. Commander Forlag, the Xylon chief diplomat on Terminus, rumored to be their intelligence director as well. Forlag's compound eyes fixed on Kale, multifaceted surfaces reflecting his image 1,000 times over. Something in that alien gaze sent a primitive fear response racing through Kale's spine. The maintenance human, Forlag said, translator rendering his clicks and chirps into unervingly smooth standard. Your task is complete? Yes, Commander, Kale said, eyes downcast. Simple filter issue. All fixed now. Good, Forlag Said. Efficiency is valued, even in lesser species. Kale nodded deferentially and continued walking, maintaining a measured pace despite every nerve ending urging him to sprint. He could feel Forlag's compound eyes tracking him until he turned the corner. Only once he was back in the public areas of the station did Kale allow himself to breathe normally. His military training had included recognizing threats, and what he'd just heard qualified as a major one. A bioweapon targeting humans, disguised as natural deaths, aimed at diplomats and representatives. He should report it. But to whom? The station security was notoriously corrupt, with department heads on the payroll of a dozen different corporate interests. The human corporate representatives could be already compromised, or might use the information for their own leverage rather than stopping the attack. And reporting it would mean revealing himself, drawing attention. The moment his biometrics entered any official system, the Legion's automated hunters would find him. Kale returned to his apartment, mind still churning through options. The small space felt more confined than ever as he paced, 5 steps one way, 5 steps back. The fern seemed to watch him accusingly from its container. I know, he muttered to the plant. I can't just do nothing. His decision process was interrupted by a soft hiss from the ventilation duct, different from the normal sounds of the station's atmospheric systems. A faint mist was seeping into the room. Kale's combat instincts kicked in instantly. He lunged for the emergency breather mask kept under his cot, but his fingers had barely brushed its casing when the first symptoms hit. A wave of dizziness dropped him to one knee. His heart began racing, pounding against his ribcage with painful intensity. Sharp, stabbing pain radiated from his chest through his left arm. Xenostrain 7. They'd found him. They'd identified him as a threat. Kale collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath as the invisible agent invaded his system. His vision began to blur, darkness creeping in from the edges. He tried to crawl toward the door, but his limbs refused to cooperate. Heart attack, he gasped to himself, recognizing the symptoms from his field medic training. Makes it look like a heart attack. As consciousness began to slip away, Kale's last thought was bitter recognition of the irony, surviving battlefield deployments across 3-star systems, only to die alone in a rusted-out maintenance apartment on a forgotten space station. Then the pain changed. Would have been sharp, localized agony in his chest expanded, flooding every nerve ending in his body. Kale's back arched involuntarily as fire raced through his veins. He tried to scream, but his constricted throat allowed only a strangled whimper. His heart wasn't stopping. It was accelerating beyond anything humanly possible. He could feel it hammering against his ribs like it might burst through his chest. Blood pounded in his ears, drowning out all other sounds. Then came the seizures, violent spasms that lifted his body completely off the floor. Every muscle contracted simultaneously, with such force that he heard something in his arm crack from the strain. And still he didn't die. Minutes stretched into hours as his body waged war against itself. Fever gripped him, so intense he could smell his own sweat evaporating. Blood leaked from his nose, his ears, the corners of his eyes, staining the metal floor beneath him. When the seizures finally subsided, Cale lay gasping in a pool of his own bodily fluids, too weak to move, too stubborn to die. The pain remained, but something else was emerging through the haze of agony. Awareness. Hyper-awareness. He could hear the individual droplets of blood sliding down his face. The ventilation system, 3 corridors away, sounded like a hurricane. He could distinguish every component of the recycled air: oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and trace elements he shouldn't have been able to detect. When he finally managed to open his eyes, the dim emergency lighting of his apartment blazed like a supernova. He squinted, tears streaming down his face as his vision adjusted, then adjusted further, and further still. The metal wall across from him, which he'd always perceived as a uniform gray surface, revealed itself as a complex tapestry of different alloys, oxidation patterns, microscopic stress fractures. He could see the individual fibers in the fabric of his clothing. Cale struggled to his feet, movements clumsy as he adjusted to sensory input that threatened to overwhelm his consciousness. The world seemed to move in slow motion around him, as if time itself had stretched to accommodate his accelerated neural processing. A noise in the corridor outside snapped his attention toward the door. Footsteps, 3 sets, moving with synchronized precision, one heavier than the others. The gait slightly uneven for what Cale somehow knew was an old injury to the right leg. They weren't making any effort to be stealthy. They believed he was already dead. Cale glanced around the room, evaluating options with a tactical clarity that felt both familiar and alien. His service knife lay on the small table by his cot, 3 steps away. The lighting panel could be disabled with a single strike, plunging the room into darkness. The ventilation duct was narrow, but might accommodate his frame if he dislocated his shoulder first. The decision was made in microseconds. As the door hissed open, Cale was already moving. The first Xylon agent stepped into the darkened room, compound eyes adjusting to the low light. It registered the human shape lunging forward, but could not process the impossible speed. Cale's knife found a vulnerable joint between carapace plates at the neck, slicing through the sensitive connective tissue beneath. The second agent managed to raise its weapon, a neural disruptor designed for non-lethal suppression, but Cale was no longer where it aimed. He had already pivoted, using the dying body of the first agent as a shield while he closed the distance. Cale's perception of time continued to slow as adrenaline and whatever changes the toxin had wrought combined to push his reaction speed beyond normal human limits. He could see the individual energy particles coalescing at the muzzle of the disruptor, the minute adjustments in the agent's grip as it tracked his movement. The disruptor discharged, the energy burst passing through empty air as Cale dropped beneath its trajectory. His momentum carried him forward, knife angling upward into the underside of the agent's thorax where the exoskeleton was thinnest. The third Xylon, the leader, judging by the insignia on its carapace, backed out of the doorway, chittering urgent commands into a communicator. Cale lunged after it, but pain suddenly lanced through his side where a fourth Xylon, hidden in the corridor shadows, had fired a projectile weapon. The impact threw Cale against the wall, his enhanced perception allowing him to experience every microsecond of agony as the projectile tore through muscle and lodged against his rib. Yet rather than weakening him, the pain seemed to fuel a new surge of feral energy. He roared, a sound more animal than human, and launched himself at the fourth agent with reckless abandon. His fingers, strengthened by the same process that had enhanced his senses, punched through the Xylon's exoskeleton like it was made of brittle plastic rather than the renowned biological armor that could repel standard weapons. The leader fled while Cale was occupied, disappearing down the corridor with a speed that suggested fear, an emotion rarely displayed by the stoic Xylon. Kale stood amidst the aftermath, chest heaving, blood dripping from a dozen wounds, both self-inflicted and enemy-caused. His mind raced, processing the implications of what had just happened. He'd killed 3 Xylon agents with his bare hands and a utility knife. He'd moved faster than professional killers could track. He'd seen things no human I should be capable of distinguishing. The poison hadn't killed him. It had changed him, and the Xylon knew he was still alive. Kale gathered essential supplies from his apartment. The medkit, his savings card, the knife, and a small hollow projector containing the only image he had from his pre-Legion life. With one last glance at the fern, he slipped out into the corridor, disappeared into the maintenance tunnels, and vanished into the deeper recesses of Terminus Station. For 3 days, Kale lived like a ghost in the forgotten spaces of the station. The maintenance tunnels, waste processing chambers, and abandoned storage areas became his domain as he evaded the Xylon search parties that combed through the public areas. His condition continued to evolve. The wound in his side, which should have required medical attention, closed within hours, leaving only a tender pink scar. His senses grew even more acute. He could detect individual heartbeats through walls, distinguish between species by their unique olfactory signatures, and see clearly in near-total darkness. But these enhancements came at a cost. Constant, gnawing hunger plagued him as his metabolism burned through calories at an unsustainable rate. Periods of extraordinary strength and speed were followed by crippling exhaustion. Random, excruciating muscle spasms would leave him gasping on the floor, unable to move for minutes at a time. And the pain never fully subsided, a permanent background radiation that occasionally flared into blinding supernovas when his enhanced senses overloaded. Every sound became potential torture. The bustling commerce level might as well have been a bomb detonating next to his eardrums. By the 4th day, Kale recognized his need for help. His body was consuming itself, and without understanding what was happening to him, he would either starve to death or suffer complete neural collapse from sensory overload. There is only one person on Terminus who might help without immediately selling him out. Doc. Anya Petrova, a former military physician dishonorably discharged for experimental procedures on wounded soldiers. Her black market clinic catered to those who couldn't risk official medical channels. Mercenaries, smugglers, and fugitives like himself. Reaching her clinic in the station's gray market district required traversing public areas. Kale waited until the station's artificial night cycle, when foot traffic was minimal, then pulled a maintenance worker's hood low over his face and moved with purposeful anonymity through the corridors. The clinic occupied a converted storage unit, unmarked except for a small blue light above the door, a signal to those who knew what to look for. Kale's enhanced hearing picked up 3 heartbeats inside, 2 slow and steady, likely sedated patients, and 1 quicker rhythm that he guessed belonged to Anya herself. He knocked a specific pattern, 2 quick, 3 slow, that identified him as someone from the shadows rather than station security. The door slid open just enough to reveal half of a woman's face, pale skin contrasting with dark eyes that evaluated him with clinical detachment. "We're closed," she said, Russian accent still noticeable despite years of speaking standard. "I'm dying," Kale replied simply, "and I think you'll find my condition professionally interesting." Those dark eyes narrowed slightly. Professional curiosity had always been Anya's weakness. "Show me," she demanded. Kale pulled back his hood and held her gaze. "Look at my pupils." Anya's expression shifted from annoyance to clinical fascination as she observed his eyes, which he knew were exhibiting the telltale dilation and contraction that had begun shortly after the poisoning. Pupils pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat, responding to stimuli milliseconds before they occurred. Inside, she decided, opening the door fully. Back room. Touch nothing. The clinic smelled of antiseptic and something herbal that Kale's enhanced senses identified as a Procyon nerve blocker. Illegal in corporate space, but highly effective for pain management. 2 figures lay on medical beds in the main area. One human with extensive burn treatments, the other a void-born with their characteristic translucent skin rendered even more ghostly by anemia. The back room was Anya's personal laboratory, cluttered with medical equipment, both standard and modified. Holographic displays showed cellular structures and chemical compounds floating in three-dimensional space. Some of the equipment looked military-grade, likely stolen or purchased through the black market. "Sit," she commanded, pointing to an examination chair. As Kale complied, she added, "I remember you. Legion. 5, maybe 6 years ago. Shoulder wound, refused anesthetic." 8 years, Kale corrected. "You've got a good memory. I remember interesting cases." She pulled on examination gloves with practiced efficiency. "You were interesting then. You're more interesting now. Tell me what happened while I examine you." Kale described the poisoning as Anya drew blood samples, scanned his vitals, and prodded at his lymph nodes with professional detachment. When he mentioned Xeno Strain 7, her hands paused momentarily before continuing their work. "You've heard of it," he observed. "Rumors," she replied, placing a blood sample into an analyzer. "Xylon bioweapon program. Highly classified. Neural toxin designed specifically for humans." She glanced at a display showing his elevated heart rate and temperature. "You should be dead." "I almost was." Anya initiated a full-body scan, green light washing over Kale as sensors mapped his internal structure. "The symptoms you describe: accelerated metabolism, hyperactive nervous system, enhanced sensory perception. They're not consistent with known toxin effects." The scanner completed its work, projecting a three-dimensional representation of Kale's body in the air between them. Anya studied it intently, manipulating the image to focus on specific systems. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Your neural pathways have been completely restructured. Synaptic density increased by approximately 400%. Muscle fiber integrity enhanced at the cellular level. Your metabolism is—" She shook her head. "Impossible. Can you fix it?" Kale asked. Anya's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Fix? This isn't broken. This is transformed. Your body chemistry has been fundamentally altered." She enlarged the image of his brain. "But it is killing you. Your metabolic rate cannot be sustained by normal nutrition. Your organs will fail from overexertion within days, perhaps a week." She turned to face him directly. "The question is not whether I can fix it, but whether I can stabilize it. Keep you alive in this new state without cellular collapse. Can you? Perhaps. I need more data, and I need connections for specialized compounds." She tapped her fingers against her workstation. "There is someone who might help with information. Jackson Dari, information broker. Not cheap." "I know Jax," Kale said. The name brought back memories of intelligence operations from his Legion days. Jax had been a valuable, if mercurial, source of information on several missions. "Good. You will need information about this toxin, its composition, intended effects, possible stabilizing agents. I will work on symptom management." She picked up an injector. "This will temporarily decrease your metabolic rate and dampen sensory input. It will make you slower, weaker, but might prevent imminent system failure." The injection burned like acid in his veins, but the relief was almost immediate. The world dulled around the edges, sounds becoming less overwhelming, light less blinding. Kale felt his heart rate decreasing to something closer to normal. "Thank you," he said, relaxing slightly for the first time in days. "Don't thank me yet," Anya replied, turning back to her displays. "This is temporary. Hours, not days. And each dose will be less effective as your body adapts." Kale nodded. "Where can I find Jax these days?" "Level 42, Sector 7. The Nexus Bar. He only surfaces during peak hours, safety in crowds." She fixed him with a stern look. "You have maybe 3 days before irreversible organ damage. Be quick." Kale found the Nexus during the station's peak business hours, when the bar was crowded with traders, corporate mid-level employees, and the occasional mercenary looking for contracts. The noise and press of bodies were overwhelming despite Anya's dampening injection, but he forced himself forward, scanning the crowd for Jax's distinctive silhouette. He spotted the information broker in a corner booth, partially hidden by a decorative holographic display. Jax hadn't changed much in the years since Kale had last seen him, still rail-thin, with implants visible along his temples and the backs of his hands, glowing with subtle blue light as they interfaced with nearby networks. His ethnicity was deliberately ambiguous, features surgically modified to incorporate characteristics from multiple human racial backgrounds, a common practice among those who wish to move unnoticed through various cultural enclaves. Jax's eyes widened slightly as he recognized Kale, then narrowed with calculation. He gestured to the seat across from him. "They said you were dead," Jax remarked casually, taking a sip from a glass containing something that shifted colors as it moved. "Legion has standing bounties on most of your old unit." "I am dead," Kale replied, sliding into the seat. "Just not in the way anyone expected." Clearly, Jax studied him with unnerving intensity. "Your pupils are cycling at approximately 3.2 hertz. That's not a standard augmentation pattern." "Interesting. I need information," Kale said, ignoring the observation, "about Xylon bioweapons, specifically something called Xenostrain 7. Jax's expression didn't change, but the implants at his temples flashed briefly. "That's classified information. Corporate level, military application. Expensive. I can pay." "I'm not sure you can," Jax replied. "But I am curious." He leaned forward slightly. "You've been exposed, haven't you? Yet you're not dead. Very, very interesting. Will you help?" Jax considered for a moment, then nodded. "Half payment now, half when I deliver. And I want a blood sample." "Why?" "Information is currency," Jax shrugged. "A human who survived Xenostrain 7? That's valuable data to the right buyers." Kale hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but I need results fast. Today, if possible. Give me 4 hours." Jax extracted a small collection device from his sleeve. "Your sample." Kale pricked his finger on the device, watching as it collected a drop of his blood. The tiny wound sealed almost instantly, another sign of his accelerated healing. Jax noticed too, his eyes gleaming with interest. 4 hours. Meet me at Docking Bay 17. It's officially decommissioned, good privacy. 4 hours gave Kale time to gather supplies and weapons. The station's black market, hidden in plain sight among legitimate vendors in the commercial district, provided everything he needed. Energy cells for a salvaged Legion pulse pistol, nutrient concentrates to fuel his ravenous metabolism, and basic armor components that could be concealed beneath clothing. Each transaction drained his limited funds, but survival took priority. If Jax's information proved useful, if Anya could stabilize his condition, then he could worry about longer-term concerns. By the time he reached Docking Bay 17, Kale could feel Anya's injection wearing off. Sounds became sharper, colors more intense, movements around him seeming to slow as his perception accelerated. The pain returned too, a constant companion that he was learning to function through rather than overcome. The docking bay was dark, emergency lighting providing minimal illumination. Perfect for a clandestine meeting, but also perfect for an ambush. Kale's enhanced senses swept the area, detecting a single heartbeat from behind a stack of empty cargo containers. "I know you're there, Jax," he called out. "Just you. Oh, did you bring friends?" Jax emerged from concealment, looking impressed. "You heard my heart? From that distance." He shook his head. "The modifications are more extensive than I anticipated. The information? Direct, as always," Jax said with a thin smile. He touched one of his temple implants, projecting data into the air between them. Xenostrain 7 is the designation for a classified Xylon bioweapon, specifically engineered to target human neural pathways. It's designed to cause rapid, catastrophic neural degradation leading to multiple organ failure, simulating natural causes like stroke or heart attack. The projection changed to show molecular structures. The toxin contains 3 primary components: a delivery mechanism that penetrates the blood-brain barrier, a neural disruptor that targets synaptic function, and a metabolic accelerant that ensures rapid distribution. Kale studied the projected data. What went wrong? Why didn't it kill me? Jax's smile widened. That's the fascinating part. According to my sources, approximately 1 in 7 million humans has a rare genetic marker. A mutation in the FOXC2 gene combined with exposure to certain radiation types common in deep space travel. He gestured to Kale. Legion personnel who served on long-range deployments often have this specific radiation signature. In these rare individuals, the neural disruptor component bonds differently with brain tissue. Instead of destroying neural pathways, it reconfigures them, creating new connections, enhancing existing ones. The metabolic accelerant, rather than ensuring rapid death, fuels a fundamental transformation. Kale processed this information, connecting it with his symptoms. So, I'm what? Evolving instead of dying. Evolving is perhaps too optimistic, Jax replied. You're changing, certainly, but without stabilization, the process will still kill you, just more spectacularly and with greater potential for collateral damage. Is there a stabilizing agent? Yes. Jax swiped through the projected data. The Xylon developed a neutralizing compound as a safeguard, insurance against accidental exposure of their own personnel or valuable assets. It doesn't reverse the effects of Xenostrain 7, but it halts progression and prevents system collapse. Where can I find it? That's the problem. It's only manufactured in their primary research facility on the station. Highly secure, limited production, closely guarded. Jax projected a schematic of the Xylon sector. Commander Forlag oversees the facility personally. After your incident, security has been enhanced significantly. Kale studied the schematic, military training automatically identifying entry points, security nodes, and potential weaknesses. Who else knows about me? About what happened? Officially, nothing happened, Jax said. Forlag has kept the failure contained, likely to protect his position and the project. Xylon hierarchy is unforgiving of mistakes. He paused. However, there's increased Xylon activity throughout the station. Private security contractors have been retained. Your description has been distributed to specific assets, though not general station security. They want to handle this quietly, Kale murmured. Precisely. A human surviving their perfect toxin? Developing enhanced abilities? It's a diplomatic nightmare and a security breach they can't afford to acknowledge. Jax closed the projection. They want you dead and disappeared before anyone important starts asking questions. What about their original plan? The human delegates? Postponed, but not abandoned. My sources indicate they're reformulating the toxin to address the potential genetic resistance. Jack studied Kale for a moment. You could simply leave the station. Many would pay handsomely for what's in your bloodstream. Kale shook his head. I'd never make it past the docking security in this condition. And even if I did, I'd be dead before reaching the next system without that stabilizing agent. Fair assessment, Jax nodded. Then you need a targeted approach. I can provide guard rotations, security protocols, and potential access codes for the appropriate compensation, of course. The rest of my credits won't buy much intelligence. I'm not interested in credits, Jax replied. I want data, regular blood samples and neural scans, comprehensive documentation of your symptoms and capabilities. The scientific community would pay extraordinary sums for verified information on human neural enhancement. Kale hesitated, then nodded. Deal. But I need something else too, a distraction. Something to divert Xylon attention away from their research facility, even temporarily. Jax's implants flickered as he considered this. There is a scheduled inspection of their commercial shipping area tomorrow. Routine customs procedure. With the right anonymous tip about contraband, station security would be obligated to conduct a more thorough search. Not a major diversion, but might thin their internal security for a short window. Make it happen, Kale said, and get me those security details. As they finalized their arrangement, neither noticed the maintenance drone hovering in a shadowed corner of the docking bay. Its optical sensors recording their conversation, its transmitter relaying the information to Xylon intelligence networks. Back at Anya's clinic, Kale shared what he'd learned while the doctor synthesized another dose of the metabolic suppressor. Genetic resistance, she murmured, studying the molecular data Jax had provided. Fascinating. But Jax is correct. Without the stabilizing agent, Your systems will eventually collapse under the strain of accelerated neural and metabolic functions. How long? Kale asked. Anya glanced at his latest scan results. At current progression rates, major organ failure within 48 to 72 hours. Brain death shortly thereafter. She administered the injection. This will help manage symptoms, but each dose becomes less effective as your body adapts. Enough time to get into the Xylon facility and find the stabilizer, Kale said, more to himself than to Anya. A suicide mission, she remarked, though her tone held no judgment. But then, you're already dying. Can you identify the stabilizer if I find it? There might be multiple compounds, storage methods I'm not familiar with. Anya nodded. Based on the molecular structure of the toxin, I can narrow down what to look for. Most likely a clear or pale blue liquid, possibly in pressure-sealed containers. She transferred data to a small scanner and handed it to him. This is programmed to detect the chemical markers most likely present in the stabilizer. Thank you, Kale said, pocketing the device. Don't thank me yet, Anya replied. Even with the stabilizer, you won't be returning to your former self. Whatever you're becoming, it's permanent. Kale nodded grimly. I stopped being my former self long before the Xylon poisoned me. The next 12 hours were devoted to preparation. Kale studied the security protocols and facility schematics provided by Jax, committing every detail to his enhanced memory. He modified his salvaged weapons for maximum efficiency and minimum detection. He forced himself to rest, though true sleep remained elusive as his mind raced with accelerated thoughts and planning. By the time Jax's distraction was scheduled to begin, Kale had formulated and discarded dozens of potential infiltration plans. The Xylon facility's security was formidable. Motion sensors calibrated to detect even minimal displacement, heat scanners, pressure plates, and guard rotations with deliberate overlap to eliminate blind spots. But every system had weaknesses. The Xylon, for all their technological advancement, still designed their security around conventional threats, not an adversary with enhanced perception, reflexes, and strength. Kale approached the Xylon sector through maintenance tunnels, using his station repair credentials to bypass initial security checkpoints. Near the research facility, he disabled his credentials and relied instead on his augmented abilities to evade detection. The distraction worked as planned. Kale could hear the increased activity in the commercial shipping area, the authoritative tones of station security officers, and the chittering protests of Xylon merchants. With attention focused elsewhere, he slipped through a service entrance used for waste disposal, timing his movements to the millisecond between sensor sweeps. Inside, he moved like a ghost through peripheral corridors, his enhanced senses allowing him to detect guard positions through walls by their heartbeats and breathing patterns. Twice he froze in shadowed recesses as patrols passed, his control over his own bodily functions now precise enough to slow his heart rate and breathing to near imperceptible levels. The research facility occupied the central portion of the Xylon sector, a gleaming citadel of advanced technology incongruous with the more utilitarian architecture of the rest of the station. Kale accessed it through environmental control ducts, slithering through spaces barely large enough to accommodate his frame. The laboratory itself was a marvel of alien design. Organic curves blended with mechanical precision, creating workspaces that felt both efficient and unsettlingly alive. Translucent containers lined the walls, filled with substances that pulsed and shifted like they possessed rudimentary consciousness. The air was thick with a sweet, acrid smell that made Kale's enhanced senses recoil. Moving silently between workstations, Kale scanned the various compounds with Anya's device. Most registered as unknown biologics or toxins, but nothing matched the specific chemical signature of the stabilizer. He needed to go deeper into the facility. The central chamber was protected by more sophisticated security, retinal scanners calibrated to Xylon compound eyes, and pressure plates designed to detect the specific weight distribution of their multi-limbed gate. Kale studied the system, calculating variables with his accelerated cognition. There was no way to trick the biometric scanners, but the ventilation system offered an alternative path. Removing a ceiling panel, Kale pulled himself into the narrow space above. The duct barely accommodated his shoulders, forcing him to wriggle forward inch by painful inch. His enhanced strength allowed him to support his weight on the flimsy metal framework that would have collapsed under normal human exertion. He emerged into a circular chamber dominated by a complex array of equipment surrounding a sealed containment unit. Inside the unit, suspended in a clear solution, floated what appeared to be a human brain, or something engineered to resemble one. Electrodes penetrated the tissue, feeding data to surrounding monitors. The scanner in Kale's hand vibrated silently. The stabilizer was here. Following the signal, he located a refrigerated storage unit built into the wall. Inside were dozens of small vials containing a pale blue liquid that shimmered slightly under the laboratory lights. As he reached for one, the main door hissed open. Commander Forlag entered, accompanied by 2 guards and a Xylon scientist distinguished by specialized appendages where others had combat limbs. Kale froze, concealed behind the containment unit, but extremely vulnerable if anyone moved to his side of the chamber. Forlag chittered something to the scientist, who responded with a series of rapid clicks. The test results are promising, the scientist's translator rendered in standard. The human genetic resistance has been isolated and countered in the new formulation. Xenostrain 8 will be immune to the mutation that protected subject K-137. And the breach? Forlag asked. No evidence of data theft during the security distraction. All systems remained isolated per protocol. Yet the subject remains at large. Forlag's mandibles clicked in apparent agitation. A walking biological hazard that should not exist. The High Command is displeased. We have increased surveillance at all access points. The subject's metabolism makes long-term survival unlikely without our intervention. It is simply a matter of time. Kale's enhanced hearing detected a slight change in Forlag's breathing, a subtle indicator of deception he would never have noticed before. Of course, Forlag said, a matter of time. Continue the preparatory work for diplomatic distribution. I will personally oversee security. As the others left, Forlag remained behind. Once alone, he approached the containment unit, studying the suspended brain with what seemed like satisfaction. Then, unexpectedly, he spoke aloud. I know you are here, human. Kale's body tensed, fight-or-flight instinct screaming through his enhanced nervous system. Your heartbeat is distinctive, Forlag continued calmly. Accelerated, yet controlled. The toxin has indeed produced remarkable effects. Slowly, Kale rose from his concealment, pulse pistol aimed at the Xylon commander. Remarkable enough to kill your agents and infiltrate your facility. Forlag's compound eyes reflected Kale's image distortedly. Yes, quite remarkable. You should have died. Instead, you become something unexpected, a superior specimen. I didn't come here for compliments. I need the stabilizer. Of course you do. Forlag gestured to the storage unit. Take it. I will not stop you. Kale maintained his aim, suspicion overwhelming his desperate need. Why would you help me? Forlag's translator emitted a sound like dry laughter. Help you? No. I am merely observing a fascinating experiment. You're no longer simply human, K-137. You are becoming something else, a hybrid of human genetics and Xylon bioengineering. Your continued existence provides valuable data. Data for what? Evolution, Forlag said simply. The Xylon have reached the limits of our biological potential. Our exoskeletons cannot adapt further. Our neural networks cannot expand beyond current parameters. We have mastered genetic manipulation of other species, yet cannot successfully apply those principles to ourselves. He gestured to the suspended brain. This is our 27th attempt to integrate human neural plasticity with Xylon cognitive processing. All failures. Yet you, an accidental subject, have succeeded where deliberate engineering failed. You're telling me this was all a happy accident? Kale's finger tightened on the trigger. The poisoning was deliberate. Your survival was the accident, a genetic anomaly we failed to anticipate. But science progresses through such unexpected outcomes. Forlag moved toward a console, movements deliberately slow. The stabilizer will prevent immediate system collapse, but it is not a cure. Your transformation will continue, though at a manageable rate. And why would you let me walk out of here with it? Because killing you would waste a valuable research opportunity, Forlag replied. And because I'm curious to see what you will become. He touched the console, causing one of the storage unit doors to slide open. Take what you need and go. Our next encounter will not be so cordial. Every instinct warned Kale this was a trap, yet his deteriorating condition left little choice. Moving with enhanced speed, he snatched 3 vials of the stabilizer and backed toward the ventilation duct. One last thing, Forlag said as Kale prepared to vanish into the ceiling. The transformation is permanent but not static. It will respond to environmental pressures, physical stressors, even psychological states. You are not just changing, you are evolving. Remember that when the pain becomes unbearable. Kale disappeared into the duct without responding, his mind racing with implications. The journey back through the Xylon sector was tense, but uneventful, suspiciously so, given Forlag's awareness of his presence. It wasn't until he reached the border between sectors that he understood why. 5 Xylon warriors awaited him at the maintenance exit. Not standard guards, but specialized hunters with reinforced exoskeletons and modified sensory appendages. They had not pursued him into the facility, but positioned themselves to intercept his escape. Forlag had indeed set a trap, just not where Kale expected it. The first hunter fired a projectile weapon before Kale fully emerged from the maintenance tunnel. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to twist away, but the confined space limited his mobility. The projectile grazed his shoulder, tearing through fabric and flesh with burning intensity. Kale rolled from the tunnel entrance, coming up in a fighting stance as his perception of time slowed to a crawl. He could see the minute adjustments of the hunter's weapons, the slight shifts in their weight distribution as they prepared to attack. The confined corridor offered minimal cover, but also limited their ability to surround him. Kale launched himself at the nearest hunter, moving faster than the Xylon's compound eyes could track. His body slammed into the armored exoskeleton with enhanced strength, driving them both against the wall with bone-crushing force. The hunter's chitin cracked, but didn't break completely. Its limbs wrapped around Kale, serrated edges slicing into his skin as they grappled in the narrow space. Kale felt no pain. His system flooded with adrenaline and whatever alien processes were rewriting his biology. He twisted violently, breaking the hunter's grip, then drove his reinforced boot into a joint where the exoskeleton segments met. The Xylon's limb shattered, green ichor spattering the corridor. Before Kale could press his advantage, another hunter fired a capture net. Electromagnetically charged filaments that wrapped around his torso and arms, delivering a stunning charge that would have incapacitated an ordinary human. Kale's enhanced physiology absorbed the shock, muscle spasming but quickly recovering. He flexed against the net, synthetic fibers stretching but not breaking. A third hunter approached, weapon raised to deliver a killing shot. Desperation triggered something new within Kale, a surge of energy that felt like fire in his veins. His vision sharpened further, the world slowing to near stillness as his perception accelerated beyond anything he'd experienced before. With a roar of effort, he burst through the capture net, filaments snapping like thread. What followed was less a fight than a slaughter. Kale moved between the hunters with impossible speed, his attacks precisely targeting vulnerable joints and sensory organs. Chitin cracked, limbs separated, ichor sprayed across walls. His hands, strengthened by the toxin's effects, punched through exoskeletons that could normally repel ballistic rounds. When it ended, Kale stood amidst the broken bodies of 5 elite hunters, his clothing soaked with their ichor and his own blood. The surge of energy faded, leaving him trembling and nauseated. He staggered away from the carnage, clutching the precious vials of stabilizer. Anya was waiting at her clinic, expression shifting from professional detachment to shock as Kale stumbled through the door covered in alien blood. "You succeeded," she stated rather than asked. immediately helping him to an examination table. "If you can call it that," Kale rasped, handing her the vials. "This is it, the stabilizer." Anya took the vials reverently, examining the pale blue liquid. "I will need time to analyze the compound and determine proper dosage." She glanced at his blood-soaked appearance. "Are you injured?" "Nothing critical," Kale replied, though his body was covered in lacerations and puncture wounds. But something happened during the fight. A new acceleration. Like everything before was just a preview. Anya frowned, initiating a scan. "Your metabolic rate is approaching critical levels. If we don't administer the stabilizer soon, cellular breakdown will begin." She prepared a sample of the blue liquid for analysis. "What did you learn?" Kale described his encounter with Forlag while Anya worked, explaining the commander's unexpected revelation about the experimental nature of Kale's transformation. "A hybrid," Anya murmured, studying the results of her analysis. "Fascinating and terrifying." The commander was correct. This stabilizer will not reverse the process. It merely prevents catastrophic system failure while the transformation continues. "So I'm still changing?" "Yes, but at a sustainable rate." Anya prepared an injection. "This dosage should establish baseline stabilization. We will need to monitor and adjust as your condition evolves." As the stabilizer entered his system, Kale felt immediate relief. The burning in his veins subsided, the overwhelming sensory input dimmed to manageable levels, the constant pain reduced to a dull ache. For the first time since the poisoning, he could think clearly without the fog of agony or the frenetic acceleration of his thoughts. "How long will it last?" he asked. "Impossible to say with certainty," Anya replied. "Based on initial readings, perhaps 72 hours per dose. But your system continues to adapt and evolve. Future doses may require adjustment." Kale nodded, processing this information. "Forlag let me escape with the stabilizer. He's treating me like some kind of experiment." "Because to them, that's exactly what you are," Anya said, reviewing his scan results. "A successful genetic hybrid they failed to create intentionally. Your continued existence provides data they couldn't obtain otherwise. But they still tried to kill me at the exit." Anya shrugged. "Perhaps different factions within their hierarchy have different priorities. Or perhaps Forlag never intended for you to survive the escape, merely to reach the hunters so they could evaluate your capabilities in combat." The realization struck Kale with chilling clarity. "He's measuring me. Testing limits." "Precisely. And now you have 3 vials of stabilizer. Enough to survive approximately 9 days. After that, I return to their laboratory or die," Kale finished grimly. "Unless we can synthesize the compound," Anya suggested. "Now that I have a sample, I can analyze its composition. Reproduction will be challenging, but not impossible." Hope flickered briefly, then faded as Kale considered the broader implications. "Even if we succeed, I'm still a walking biological weapon. The Xylon won't stop hunting me, and their plan to poison the human delegates is still active. They're just reformulating the toxin." Anya's expression hardened. "Then perhaps you should consider using your new abilities for more than just survival." For the next 3 days, Kale recovered his strength while Anya worked to reverse engineer the stabilizer. The first dose had arrested his deterioration, giving him a precious window to plan his next move. Jax provided updates on Xylon activities throughout the station, increased security, discreet inquiries about Kale's whereabouts, and accelerated preparations for a diplomatic reception scheduled for the following week. "They're moving forward with their plan," Kale concluded after reviewing Jax's latest intelligence. "The diplomatic reception will be the perfect opportunity to expose multiple human representatives to the reformulated toxin. And you're certain they've successfully adapted it to overcome genetic resistance?" Anya asked, not looking up from her analysis of the stabilizer. "According to what I overheard, yes. Xenostrain 8 specifically counters the mutation that protected me." Kale paced the small laboratory, movements fluid and precise in a way that still felt alien to him. "We need to stop them before the reception. And how do you propose to do that?" Jax inquired from his position by the door, implants flickering as he monitored station security feeds. "Forlag has transformed the Xylon sector into a fortress. Direct confrontation would be suicide, even with your enhancements. Kale stopped pacing, decision crystallizing. Then we don't confront them directly. We expose them. The plan came together rapidly, each component assigned based on their unique capabilities. Jax would penetrate the station's communication and security systems, gathering evidence of the Xylon bioweapon program. Anya would prepare documentation of Kale's condition, irrefutable proof of the toxin's effects and the Xylon's intentions. Kale himself would provide the most dramatic evidence, his transformed physiology and direct testimony. But they needed a platform, someone with the authority and independence to present their evidence without Xylon interference. Magistrate Elora Chun, Jack suggested. She oversees commercial disputes on the station, but has jurisdiction to open investigations into criminal matters. More importantly, she has no documented ties to either human corporate interests or Xylon commercial entities. Will she listen? Kale asked. She has a reputation for incorruptibility, Jax replied. Unusual in a place like Terminus. Whether that makes her an idealist or simply someone with a higher price remains to be seen. Arranging a meeting proved challenging. The magistrate's schedule was tightly controlled, and formal requests would alert station security, potentially compromised by Xylon influence. Instead, Kale uses enhanced abilities to track her movements, identifying a small restaurant in the neutral commercial sector where she dined alone twice weekly. The opportunity came 4 days after his raid on the Xylon laboratory. Kale, disguised with synthetic skin patches to mask his most visible changes, slipped into the restaurant shortly after the magistrate was seated. He approached her table directly, ignoring the protective posture of her security detail. Magistrate Chun, he said quietly, I have evidence of a plot to assassinate human diplomatic representatives using a biological weapon. I need 5 minutes of your time. The guards tensed, hands moving to weapons, but the magistrate raised a hand to stop them. Her eyes, augmented with subtle cybernetic enhancements typical of judicial officials, studied Kale with calculating interest. That's a serious accusation, she replied calmly. One that would typically be directed to station security, not a commercial magistrate dining in public. Station security is compromised, Kale said, and what I have to show you goes beyond standard legal channels. Something in his tone or appearance must have convinced her. She dismissed her guards to a discreet distance with a slight nod. You have 2 minutes. Impress me. Kale removed one of the synthetic patches from his hand, revealing the subtly altered skin beneath. Texture changed, veins more prominent, muscle structure visibly different. I was poisoned by a Xylon bioweapon called Xenostrain 7. It was designed to kill humans in a way that mimics natural causes. In my case, it failed. The magistrate's enhanced eyes narrowed as she examined his exposed hand. Continue. I have medical documentation, biochemical analysis, and data on their next target, the diplomatic reception, in 3 days. They've reformulated the toxin to ensure it works on all humans, regardless of genetic factors. Kale maintained eye contact. I can prove everything I'm saying, but not here. And we don't have much time. Why come to me? Because you're not bought, Kale said simply. At least not by anyone involved in this. The magistrate's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but acknowledgement of his assessment. Very well. My chamber's 1 hour. Come through the service entrance. My security will expect you. She returned to her meal as if they discussed nothing more significant than station regulations. Kale slipped away, heart racing with a mixture of relief and anxiety. The first step had been taken, but the most dangerous part of their plan was yet to come. Magistrate Chin's chambers occupied a secure section of the station's administrative level, heavily monitored, but, as Jax had confirmed, operating on a closed system separate from general station security. This independence, designed to prevent corruption and tampering with legal proceedings, now provided a rare opportunity to present evidence without immediate Xylon detection. Anya and Jax joined Kale for the meeting, each bringing crucial components of the case. The magistrate listened impassively as they presented their evidence, Kale's medical scans showing his transformed physiology, Jax's data intercepts revealing Xylon communications about the bioweapon, and Anya's analysis of both the toxin and stabilizer compounds. When they finished, Magistrate Chun was silent for a long moment, her augmented eyes reviewing the documentation within human speed. If verified, she finally said, this constitutes biological warfare, attempted mass murder, and violation of at least 17 interstellar treaties. She focused on Kale. But your existence presents a complication. You are essentially a walking biological weapon yourself now. I'm aware, Kale replied grimly. I'm not asking for immunity or special treatment. I just want to stop the attack. Noble, but incomplete, the magistrate observed. Commander Forlag must be held accountable, and the Xylon High Command must be made aware that their operations have been exposed. She tapped her desk thoughtfully. I will need time to authenticate this evidence and prepare for formal action. We don't have time, Kale insisted. The reception is in 3 days. 2 days and 17 hours, the magistrate corrected, and I am well aware of the timeline. Return tomorrow at this same hour. I will have determined a course of action by then. It was the best they could hope for, though the delay made Kale uneasy. As they left the administrative level, Jax's implants suddenly flashed in alarm. We've been compromised, he said quietly. Station security just received a priority alert regarding us. Specifically you, Kale. The magistrate? Jax shook his head. Unlikely. The alert originated from the Xylon sector. Someone observed us entering the administrative level and made the connection. How much time do we have? Minutes, perhaps. Security teams are mobilizing near all exit points from this level. Kale made a rapid decision. Split up. Anya, return to your clinic through the medical transport tubes. They won't expect that route. Jax, you're less recognizable without your implants active. Power down and take the main thoroughfare. And you? Anya asked. I'll provide a distraction, Kale replied, already calculating routes and timing. Meet at the secondary location in 6 hours. Before they could protest, Kale moved toward the most heavily guarded exit point. His enhanced senses detected the security team, 6 officers with standard neural stunners and restraint equipment, positioned in a standard containment formation. Rather than avoid them, he walked directly into their field of view, then accelerated to his new, inhuman speed. The sudden burst of movement caught them off guard, creating momentary confusion as training protocols competed with surprise. Kale avoided physical contact, using his speed to weave between officers, triggering motion sensors and security alerts. As predicted, the team focused entirely on him, calling for backup and pursuit resources that would have otherwise been allocated to identifying his companions. The chase extended through multiple levels of the station, Kale maintaining just enough distance to keep pursuit active without exhausting himself. His enhanced physiology allowed him to sustain speeds that would have crippled a normal human, but the effort still drained his energy reserves rapidly. After ensuring Anya and Jax had sufficient time to escape, Kale executed the final phase of his improvised distraction. He entered the commercial district during peak hours, using the crowd density to break visual contact with his pursuers. Then, exploiting his knowledge of maintenance access points, he slipped into a waste processing tube, sliding down to lower levels where security presence was minimal. By the time he reached the designated secondary location, an abandoned storage unit in a neglected section of the engineering level, Anya and Jax were already waiting. Subtle, Jax remarked dryly as Kale entered. Effective, Kale countered, accepting a nutrient solution from Anya. The enhanced metabolism that powered his abilities required constant refueling. Status: Station security has established a perimeter around the administrative level and implemented enhanced identification protocols. Jax reported, implants projecting data into the air. They're specifically scanning for your biometric signature. Fortunately, they're using standard parameters that don't account for your modifications. Magistrate Chun, continuing normal activities. No indication of detainment or unusual security presence around her chambers. That's something, Kale murmured. But we can't count on her cooperation now. We need a contingency plan. Anya hesitated, then produced a small case from her medical bag. I've been working on this since analyzing the stabilizer. She opened the case to reveal a modified delivery system containing a pale green compound. It's not a cure, but it's a targeted counteragent designed to temporarily boost your capabilities beyond their current threshold. Kale studied the device warily. Side effects? Significant, Anya admitted. Potentially lethal. It forces your altered physiology to its absolute limits. The strain on your cardiovascular and nervous systems would be extreme. I designed it as a last resort. How long would the effect last? 20 minutes, perhaps 30. After that, complete system collapse without immediate stabilizer administration. She closed the case. As I said, a last resort. Kale nodded grimly, accepting the case. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. The next 18 hours passed in tense preparation. Jax monitored station communications, tracking security movements and Xylon activities. Anya finalized her analysis of the stabilizer, producing 2 additional doses from her limited supply. Kale refined their contingency plans, mapping routes into the diplomatic reception area and identifying potential weaknesses in the Xylon security arrangements. When the time came to return to Magistrate Chen's chambers, they approached with extreme caution, using service corridors and maintenance tunnels to avoid security checkpoints. Kale's enhanced senses detected no ambush or surveillance around the service entrance, which either indicated the magistrate had maintained confidentiality or was setting a very sophisticated trap. They were admitted by the same security detail as before, though Kale noted subtle differences in their posture and alertness, more tense, hands closer to weapons. The magistrate herself appeared unchanged, her augmented eyes reviewing data on multiple holographic displays as they entered. Your situation has become more complicated, she said without preamble, dismissing the displays with a gesture. Commander Forlag has filed a formal complaint alleging theft of proprietary biological compounds and industrial espionage. He specifically named you, Kale, though interestingly not your companions. That's because I'm the experiment he wants to recover, Kale replied. Have you verified our evidence? Yes, the magistrate nodded. The biochemical analysis is particularly compelling, as is the communication intercept data. However, official action requires formal procedures that would take weeks to implement, time we do not have. Then what do you propose? Magistrate Chen's expression remained neutral, but her augmented eyes gleamed with what might have been determination. A more direct approach. I have authority to conduct an immediate inspection of facilities where criminal activity is reasonably suspected. With you 3 as expert witnesses, we can enter the Xylon research facility legally and document their bioweapon program firsthand. They'll never allow it, Jax objected. They'll destroy evidence the moment they receive notification. Which is why there will be no prior notification, the magistrate replied. Emergency inspection protocols allow for immediate execution when there is credible evidence of imminent public danger. Kale recognized the strategy, bold, legally defensible, but incredibly dangerous. Forlag won't surrender peacefully if cornered. I'm counting on that, the magistrate said. His reaction will itself become evidence. She activated a secure communication channel. I've assembled a team of security officers personally vetted for this operation. They will meet us at the access point in 30 minutes. The plan was both simple and audacious. Magistrate Chen, accompanied by her security team and the 3 expert witnesses, would execute an emergency inspection of the Xylon research facility. The legal authority of a magistrate, combined with the element of surprise, would theoretically allow them to access the facility before evidence could be destroyed. In practice, Kale knew it would likely become a confrontation, one with potentially catastrophic consequences. But without alternatives and time rapidly running out, it represented their best chance to prevent the mass poisoning. The magistrate's security team consisted of 8 officers in specialized tactical gear, not station security, but her personal judicial enforcement unit, trained for high-risk warrant executions. They moved with disciplined precision, expressions professionally blank as they received their unusual briefing. Remember, the magistrate instructed as they approached the Xylon sector. "This is a legal inspection, not a raid. We maintain procedural correctness unless directly threatened. The evidence must be properly documented to be admissible in subsequent proceedings." The team nodded in unison, though Kale noted the subtle adjustments to their weapons and defensive postures. They were preparing for resistance, not compliance. The approach to the Xylon sector proceeded without incident, the magistrate's authority granting them passage through normal security checkpoints. It wasn't until they reached the research facility in Trance that they encountered the first signs of resistance. Four Xylon guards blocked the entrance, their posture indicating alarm rather than routine vigilance. The lead guard chittered urgently into a communicator as they approached. "Magistrate Alora Chun," she announced formally, presenting her credentials. "I am executing an emergency inspection under Station Code 793 based on credible evidence of illegal biological weapons development within this facility." The guard's compound eyes shifted rapidly between the magistrate and Kale, clearly recognizing him despite his disguise. The lead guard stepped forward, mandibles clicking. "This facility contains proprietary research protected by interstellar treaty," its translator rendered. "Access requires authorization from Commander Forlag, who has been notified of your presence. Station emergency protocols supersede proprietary protections," the magistrate replied evenly, "particularly when public safety is at imminent risk. You may accompany us during the inspection, but you cannot legally prevent it." For a tense moment, it seemed the guards might resort to force. Then the facility door slid open, revealing Commander Forlag himself, flanked by two more guards and a Xylon in scientific attire. "Magistrate Shun," Forlag's translator produced the approximation of a cordial tone. "This is an unexpected honor. To what do we owe this inspection?" "Evidence of biological weapons development targeting human physiology," the magistrate stated bluntly. "Specifically a neural toxin-designated xenostrain, reportedly being prepared for deployment at the upcoming diplomatic reception." Forlag's compound eyes fixed on Kale, multifaceted surfaces reflecting his image with unsettling intensity. "Serious allegations. Based, I presume, on the testimony of this maintenance worker, a known thief who recently stole proprietary compounds from our facility. Based on multiple sources, including biochemical analysis, intercepted communications, and yes, the direct testimony of Kale, who appears to have been an unwilling test subject in your research." Forlag's mandibles clicked rapidly. The Xylon expression Kale had learned to recognize as amusement or satisfaction, a creative interpretation of events. "I welcome your inspection, Magistrate. The truth should indeed be established." The too easy acquiescence triggered warning signals in Kale's enhanced awareness. His senses stretched outward, detecting subtle changes in air pressure as hidden panels prepared to open, the nearly inaudible hum of energy weapons charging, the distinctive scent of Xylon combat pheromones. "It's a trap," he said quietly to the magistrate. "They prepared for this contingency." Before she could respond, Forlag gestured toward the interior of the facility. "Please begin your inspection. Our research is open for your review." The magistrate hesitated, clearly recognizing the danger but bound by procedural requirements. After a moment's calculation, she nodded to her security team. "Proceed with standard emergency inspection protocols. Document everything." As they entered the facility, Kale positioned himself near the magistrate, every sense alert for the inevitable betrayal. The initial chambers contained nothing remarkable: standard laboratory equipment, data terminals, storage units for biological samples. The Xylon scientists observed their progress with chittering communications that their translators conspicuously failed to render into standard. The deeper they penetrated into the facility, the more Kale's unease grew. His enhanced senses detected increasing numbers of Xylon gathering in adjacent chambers, the distinctive sounds of advanced weapons being prepared, and slight atmospheric changes suggesting environmental controls being adjusted to Xylon combat preferences. When they reached the central laboratory, the same chamber where Kale had obtained the stabilizer, Forelag stepped ahead of the group and turned to face them. "You wish to see our research, Magistrate?" "Very well." He activated a console, causing the central containment unit to illuminate. Inside, suspended in clear fluid, floated not one, but dozens of samples that Kale recognized with horror. Human brain tissue in various stages of transformation. "This is our xenobiological adaptation program," Forelag announced. "Perfectly legal research into cross-species medical applications. We study how human neural tissue responds to various compounds, seeking treatments for degenerative conditions." The magistrate's augmented eyes narrowed as she studied the specimens. "And these subjects consented to the use of their tissue?" "All samples were legally obtained through corporate medical repositories," Forelag replied smoothly. "Full documentation is available for review." "And this?" The magistrate gestured to a sealed container that Kale immediately recognized as housing the xenostrain toxin. "Is this also part of your medical research?" "A neural stabilizer for human patients suffering from advanced degenerative conditions." Forelag's translator rendered his clicking speech with practiced ease. "Currently in final testing phases." The exchange continued, a verbal chess match between magistrate and commander, each move carefully calculated. Kale, meanwhile, monitored the building threat. More guards entering adjacent chambers, weapons being positioned, communications increasing in frequency and urgency. "They're stalling," he murmured to Anya, who nodded subtly. "Magistrate," Jax interrupted the formal questioning, "you may wish to examine the data terminals. The research protocols should be accessible through the main laboratory system." Forelag's compound eyes swiveled toward Jax, mandibles clicking rapidly. "Our data systems require specialized access. Unfortunately, I have universal override authority during emergency inspections." The magistrate cut in, moving toward the nearest terminal. "Please step aside." It was the trigger Forelag had been waiting for. As the magistrate reached for the terminal, the commander issued a sharp, untranslated command. Hidden panels throughout the laboratory slid open, revealing armed Xylon warriors in combat position. The atmosphere vents increased output, filling the chamber with a gas mixture optimized for Xylon combat reflexes, but slightly disorienting to humans. "This inspection is now concluded," Forelag announced, all pretense of cooperation vanishing. "You have violated sovereign Xylon research territory and attempted to access classified information. You will be detained for diplomatic processing." The magistrate's security team moved to defensive positions, weapons raised. "Stand down, Commander," she ordered, her voice steady despite the escalating danger. "Interference with a legal inspection compounds your existing violations." "Legal?" Forelag's translator produced a sound like harsh laughter. "Nothing about this intrusion is legal. Your human laws have no authority here." The standoff teetered on the edge of violence, neither side willing to initiate, but both prepared to respond. Kale assessed their options, calculating survival probabilities with his enhanced cognition. The odds were poor and deteriorating rapidly as more Xylon forces positioned themselves. Then Forelag shifted strategies. "Of course," he said, mandibles clicking in apparent consideration. "We could resolve this diplomatically. A misunderstanding, nothing more. You withdraw your inspection team, and we proceed with proper diplomatic channels. By the time the reception occurs, all concerns will be appropriately addressed." "The reception that you plan to use for deploying your bioweapon?" Kale challenged, unable to contain himself. Forelag's compound eyes fixed on him. "The failed experiment speaks." "How fascinating. Have you told the magistrate what you truly are now, K-137? Not human, not Xylon, but something unnatural. A hybrid abomination that should not exist." "I didn't choose this," Kale replied, feeling the familiar burn of the toxin-induced changes beneath his skin. "Your weapon did this to me." "A weapon?" "No, an evolutionary catalyst, selectively deployed." Forelag turned to the magistrate. "What stands before you is not a victim, magistrate, but a new form of life, one that represents the future of both our species. Study him closely. Observe the changes in muscle density, neural response time, sensory acuity. The perfect merger of human adaptability and Xylon biological engineering. The magistrate's enhanced eyes narrowed as she regarded Kale with new scrutiny. Is this true? Are you still changing? Before Kale could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Jax, who had positioned himself near a data terminal during the confrontation, smiled thinly. What I lack in biological enhancement, I make up for in technological access, he announced, implants glowing intensely. I've just transmitted the complete research files on Xeno strain development to the Magistrate's secure server, the Station Command Authority, and 16 independent news networks. Forlag's posture shifted instantly from confident control to predatory aggression. Kill them all, he commanded, the translator abandoning diplomatic phrasing. No survivors. The laboratory erupted into chaos. The Magistrate's security team opened fire as Xylon warriors attacked from multiple entry points. Energy weapons discharged, filling the air with the scent of ozone and burning chitin. The confined space amplified the violence, turning precise combat into a desperate melee. Kale moved to protect the Magistrate, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to intercept two Xylon warriors before they reached her position. He fought with brutal efficiency, no longer restrained by human limitations or morality. His hands broke through exoskeletons, tore limbs from joints, crushed sensory organs with devastating precision. But the Xylon had numbers and preparation on their side. 3 of the Magistrate's security team fell in the initial exchange, their tactical gear no match for the concentrated fire from multiple directions. Anya took cover behind a research console, using a stolen Xylon weapon with surprising skill. Jax continued his digital assault, his implants allowing him to override systems throughout the facility even as he physically dodged attacks. Kale fought his way to Forlag, recognizing that the commander was the key to ending the conflict. The Xylon hierarchy was rigid. Without leadership, the warriors would fall into defensive patterns rather than press the attack. Forlag anticipated this strategy. As Kale approached, the commander activated a personal shield generator, advanced technology rarely seen outside of military applications. The energy barrier shimmered into existence, creating a protective cocoon around the Xylon commander. Impressive, isn't it? Forlag's translator rendered with cold precision. Adapted from human technology, but perfected by Xylon engineering. Your enhanced strength cannot penetrate it. Kale assessed the barrier, his accelerated perception noting the energy oscillation pattern, the slight variations in field density. There were weaknesses, minimal but present. Maybe not, he acknowledged, but I'm not just stronger. He feinted an attack, causing Forlag to shift position defensively. As the shield adjusted to Forlag's movement, Kale struck, not with brute force, but with precisely calculated timing, his fist connecting at the exact millisecond when the field recycled its energy pattern. The shield shuddered but held. Forlag chittered what might have been laughter. You cannot win this, K-137. Even with your enhancements, you remain limited by human thinking. The taunt struck deeper than Forlag could know. Kale had been fighting to retain his humanity despite the alien changes to his body. He'd rejected the full potential of his transformation, fearing the loss of his identity, his human core. In that moment of clarity, Kale made a decision. He reached into his pocket and removed Anya's case, containing the experimental booster, the compound designed to push his altered physiology beyond its current threshold. "Dr. Anya," he called out. "The stabilizer, be ready." Before she could respond, Kale activated the delivery system and pressed it against his neck. The compound entered his bloodstream with burning intensity, igniting every nerve ending simultaneously. The pain was transcendent, beyond anything he had experienced. His vision whited out, then returned with impossible clarity. He could see the individual energy particles in Forlag's shield, the microscopic stress fractures in the Xylon exoskeletons, the neural impulses traveling through his own body. Time slowed to near stoppage. The world around him became a tableau of suspended motion. Energy weapons discharging in slow motion, ichor droplets hanging in the air, the magistrate's expression frozen in a mask of determined calculation. Kale moved through this static reality like a ghost, his body responding with supernatural precision. He approached Forlag's shield, now perceiving its energy pattern as a visible, navigable structure. With methodical care, he synchronized his movements to the shield's oscillation, stepping through the barrier during the microsecond of its recycling phase. Inside the shield, he faced Forlag directly. The commander's compound eyes registered shock, an emotion rarely displayed by the stoic Xylon. Kale gripped the commander's primary limbs, enhanced strength crushing the reinforced exoskeleton. "You wanted to see the results of your experiment," Kale said, voice distorted by the changes occurring within him. "Here I am." With surgical precision, he disabled Forlag's neural centers without killing him, a technique impossible for normal human reflexes but trivial with his boosted capabilities. The commander collapsed, immobilized but conscious, still able to perceive but unable to command. The shield collapsed with Forlag's incapacitation. Kale turned to the remaining Xylon warriors, who hesitated as they processed the impossible defeat of their commander. That moment of uncertainty was all the advantage the magistrate's team needed. They pressed their attack, coordinated fire, forcing the Xylon into defensive positions. But Kale's victory came at a terrible cost. The booster compound was burning through his system with devastating efficiency. Blood vessels ruptured beneath his skin, creating a web-like pattern of hemorrhaging. His enhanced vision began to fracture, reality splintering into kaleidoscopic fragments. His heartbeat accelerated beyond sustainable levels, muscle tissue tearing from the strain of his own movements. He staggered, falling to one knee as his body began to fail. Through fragmenting vision, he saw Anya fighting her way toward him, the stabilizer injection ready in her hand. The remaining Xylon forces, sensing his vulnerability, redirected their attack. Energy weapons discharged, projectiles launched, all aimed at the suddenly weakened hybrid who had defeated their commander. With the last reserves of his fading strength, Kale lunged toward the nearest console, activating the containment field controls. Energy barriers similar to Forlag's shield sprang into existence throughout the laboratory, creating partition-safe zones that protected the magistrate and her remaining team while isolating groups of Xylon warriors. Anya reached him as he collapsed fully, his respiratory system beginning to shut down from the strain. She administered the stabilizer injection directly into his carotid artery, her movements precise despite the chaos around them. "Hold on," she urged, monitoring his vital signs with a portable scanner. "The stabilizer is working, but the damage is extensive. Your system is in shock." Through dimming consciousness, Kale was aware of the tide turning. The magistrate's remaining security team, protected by the containment fields, methodically neutralized the isolated Xylon warriors. Jax continued his digital assault, locking down facility systems and transmitting research data to external networks. The last thing Kale saw before darkness claimed him was Magistrate Chun standing over Commander Forlag, reciting formal charges as her augmented eyes recorded everything for legal documentation. He awoke an unknown time later in Anya's clinic, surrounded by medical equipment and the soft beeping of monitoring devices. His body felt different, heavier, more solid, yet somehow incomplete. "Welcome back," Anya said, noticing his consciousness. "You've been unconscious for 3 days." Kale tried to speak, but his throat was raw and uncooperative. Anya offered water, which he drank greedily. "What happened?" he finally managed. "You nearly died," she replied bluntly. "The booster compound pushed your physiology beyond sustainable limits. Multiple organ systems failed simultaneously. I had to install temporary mechanical support for your heart and lungs while your body stabilized." Kale became aware of the strange sensation in his chest, a rhythmic humming that complemented but didn't match his heartbeat. "Mechanical, cybernetic emergency systems," Anya confirmed. "Military grade, modified for your unique physiology." They'll integrate with your tissue as you heal, becoming part of you. The implication struck him with cold clarity. I'm becoming less human. You haven't been fully human since the poisoning, Anya said, her clinical detachment softening slightly. But you've remained yourself, your choices, your morality, your determination. That's more important than biological classification. Cale processed this as he assessed his condition. The constant pain that had accompanied him since the poisoning was different now. Duller, more localized, concentrated around the cybernetic implants rather than suffusing his entire being. The Xylon? Forlak. In custody, Jax answered, entering the room. His implants glowed with subdued efficiency as he approached. Magistrate Chun has filed formal charges of biological warfare, attempted mass assassination, and treaty violations. The evidence was overwhelming once we accessed their research database. The diplomatic reception? Canceled and rescheduled under enhanced security protocols. The reformulated toxin was discovered exactly where you said it would be, in ventilation systems throughout the diplomatic sector. Relief washed through Cale, tempered by the uncertainty of his own situation. And me? What happens to the walking biological weapon? Jax and Anya exchanged glances. The magistrate has been creative in her legal approach, Jax explained. You've been classified as both a victim of biological attack and a protected research subject. Your existence remains classified, known only to those directly involved. For now, Anya added, your condition continues to evolve, even with the stabilizer. The cybernetic components are accelerating integration at a rate I've never seen before. Your body is adapting to them, incorporating them into your altered physiology. Becoming something new, Cale murmured. Yes, Anya agreed. Something neither fully human, Xylon, nor machine, but a functioning synthesis of all three. The first of your kind. The implications stretched before Cale like an uncharted void, terrifying in its uncertainty, yet containing possibilities beyond imagination. He was an accidental creation, a biological experiment gone awry, yet somehow still himself at his core. In the weeks that followed, Cale's recovery progressed at an accelerated rate. The cybernetic components, fully integrated with his altered physiology, creating a hybrid system that functioned with remarkable efficiency. His enhanced senses stabilized, no longer overwhelming, but providing precise, controllable information about his environment. Terminus Station changed as well. The Xylon diplomatic presence diminished significantly following Forlag's arrest and the exposure of their bioweapon program. Human corporate representatives, made aware of how close they had come to extinction, implemented new security protocols and biological scanning systems. Magistrate Chun, elevated to Chief Administrative Authority for her role in preventing the attack, established new regulations governing biological research and cross-species diplomacy. The station, once a lawless frontier outpost, began the slow transformation into a more regulated, secure environment. For Cale, however, Terminus could no longer be home. His unique condition made him both a valuable research subject and a potential weapon, too dangerous to roam freely, too unique to be terminated or imprisoned. The solution came from an unexpected source. Magistrate Chen offered him a position as a special investigator under her direct authority, operating in the shadows, using his unique abilities to identify and neutralize threats before they materialized. His official status would provide protection from those who might seek to exploit or destroy him, while his unofficial operations would remain deniable if necessary. 6 months after Forlag's poison had transformed him, Cale stood at an observation port overlooking the vast expanse of space beyond Terminus Station. His reflection in the reinforced glass was subtly altered, still recognizably himself, yet different in ways both obvious and subtle. The cybernetic enhancements visible at his temples and along his neck, the altered musculature and posture, the eyes that shifted sometimes from human to something more compound in structure. Admiring the view, or yourself? Anya asked, joining him at the port. She had become his physician, researcher, and something approaching a friend, the only person who fully understood the ongoing changes in his biology. Neither, Kale replied. Just thinking about what comes next. The stabilizer synthesis is complete, she informed him. You'll have a consistent supply now, administered through the integrated delivery system. She gestured to the subtle pump mechanism visible beneath the skin of his forearm. No more manual injections every 72 hours. Freedom from one constraint, at least, Kale acknowledged. You're not a prisoner, Kale, Anya reminded him. The magistrate's arrangement gives you more autonomy than most station residents. With corresponding responsibilities, he countered, though without bitterness. The past months had brought a strange acceptance of his new reality, neither fully resigned nor entirely embracing, but a pragmatic adaptation to circumstances beyond his control. Your first assignment came through, Anya said, changing the subject. Suspected biological smuggling operation in the Outer Rim, potentially connected to remnants of Forlag's research team who escaped during the raid. Kale nodded, eyes fixed on the stars beyond the station. In the reflection, he could see his pupils cycling in their now familiar pattern, expanding and contracting in rhythm with his hybrid heartbeat, processing information at speeds no pure human could achieve. I'm ready, he said, and meant it. The transformation that had begun as a Xylon assassination attempt had become something else entirely. An evolution neither planned nor natural, yet undeniably real. He was the accidental result of an alien attempt to poison humanity, transformed by chance genetics, alien biotoxins, and human cybernetic ingenuity into something unprecedented. As he turned from the viewport, Kale moved with the fluid precision of his enhanced physiology, no longer fighting against the changes but working with them. The aliens had tried to poison a human, but in their failure had created something they couldn't control or predict. Their weapon had backfired in the most profound way possible, creating not just a survivor, but an adversary uniquely equipped to counter their future plans. The irony wasn't lost on him. In trying to quietly eliminate a witness, Commander Forlag had instead catalyzed the creation of his most dangerous enemy, one who understood Xylon biology, tactics, and technology from the inside out. Whatever came next in this strange new existence, Kale would face it as what he now was, not fully human anymore, but still humanity's defender. In the artificial gravity of Terminus Station, he felt lighter than he had in years. The weight of hiding, of anonymity, of fear had been replaced by purpose. The poison meant to end him had instead given him a new beginning, painful, unwanted, but undeniably powerful. He stepped away from the viewport, leaving his old reflection behind. The next chapter of his existence was beginning, written in altered DNA, alien biotoxins, and cybernetic enhancements. Not the life he had chosen, but one he would now embrace, a hybrid Avenger born from the very weapon meant to destroy his kind.